When international diplomacy is conducted over a telephone call, it's not surprising that both sides might have different interpretations as to what was agreed. And both the White House statement and the Kremlin statement make for an interesting comparison. So this was the White House statement, really quite short. It talked about the need for improved bilateral relations between the United States and Russia, something President Trump is very keen on. It talked about a ceasefire on energy and infrastructure in Ukraine and in Russia, as well as technical negotiations on the implementation of a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. On the Middle East, it talked about the need to stop proliferation of strategic and nuclear weapons. It said that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel, quite an easy thing for the Russians to agree to. And it talked about the improved bilateral relationship between the United States and Russia with a huge upside. It said there are enormous economic deals and geopolitical stability to play for. The Kremlin statement, by contrast, was rather longer, and it said lots of things, but let's look at what it said about Ukraine itself. It said that a Ukraine ceasefire must be part of a comprehensive, sustainable and long-term process, a peace deal. In other words, you can't have a ceasefire until you've agreed everything. It talked about the need to eliminate the root causes of the crisis, which in President Putin's mind is everything he's been complaining about for the last 10 years or so. It talked about having effective control over a possible ceasefire along the whole line of contact, which is actually 1,200 kilometres. It talked about the need to stop the Ukrainians continuing to mobilise or to have armed forces in Ukraine or build up their armed forces during a ceasefire. So, in other words, the Ukrainians weren't allowed to improve their position at all. And it called for a complete cessation of foreign military aid and intelligence sharing with Kiev, something that the Russians don't have to do themselves, but they're demanding that the Ukrainians do it. Putin said they would refrain from striking energy infrastructure. Not energy and infrastructure, the way the Americans put it, but energy infrastructure, which means it's a very narrow range of targets. It means that they could still strike military command and control, armoured facilities, civilians. It's only energy infrastructure targets that they've said they will exempt for 30 days. And President Putin said we've responded positively, and he's immediately given the Russian military the corresponding order to carry this out now, tonight. But actually, it doesn't mean a whole lot. In the Black Sea, it was agreed to begin negotiations towards a ceasefire. And if we look at a map of Ukraine, we see what this agreement really hasn't covered, which is a ground force ceasefire. The fact is, President Putin doesn't want a ceasefire on the ground because he's snuffed out the Kursk pocket in the north. He's got maybe 60,000 troops that he can redeploy round to the south and the southeast. And that, in 3 or 4 weeks' time, could make a real difference. And so as they take their different interpretations away from it tonight, President Trump will say that we've started the process of creating a peace plan. President Putin will know that that peace process will take a long time. And the longer it takes, the better off he thinks he will be on the ground in Ukraine.